kind of feel like it's been a minute since I've talked about a Marvel movie on this channel. There was a time when on YouTube that's all I really did was freaking talk about superhero movies. And honestly, I can't get Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 out of my head. Dude, I really like this movie. I was really surprised considering a lot of reviews out there had said, oh, it's good, but it's not as good as the first one. It falls a little flat, it's a little boring, it's a little dull. I was blown away. I can't stop thinking about it because it was a really good time. It's very different than the original Guardians of the Galaxy, but it expanded on so much, and I really just had a good time. Now, I just a heads up, I won't go into spoilers until the end, but I just really like the way this movie felt and what it did. First of all, it feels very different from the first Guardians of the Galaxy, where the first Guardians of the Galaxy was very much, it took the characters from the newer runs and made them feel light and familiar, and they put them in a Star Wars type setting and structure, and it worked. It felt like Guardians of the Galaxy, but it also was like an entertaining movie for everyone, and it was really cool. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 goes full comic book like crazy. Like, I was blown away just how out there this movie is, and I think that is an absolute compliment to it. I thought Doctor Strange was really out there in a good way. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is crazy. I cannot believe that this movie is breaking records and getting mainstream audiences to sit in theaters and watch this comic book ass shit. It's good. It's really good. And I think that's why some of the reviews are middling, just because it is different in a lot of ways than the original movie. It's very different, but it does try and delve deeper into a lot of the characters in ways that I don't think always feels very smooth, but I do like the way it's done. Especially, obviously, Peter Quill, Star-Lord, who is once again the main character, but doesn't feel as much the main character as he did in the original. Here, he gets equal screen time with a lot of people, including Gamora, who they flesh out a lot, and I really enjoyed. But the whole thing with Peter Quill and his father, I really enjoyed. First of all, the way they wrote in Ego, the living planet, and made him kind of exist in this Marvel universe. I thought it was really cool. It was so sci-fi, it was so comic book, and some of the later scenes just got so crazy and ridiculous, and just the way they did him with CGI and stuff. I totally thought it was so much fun. Not to mention, can we just talk about how well Marvel now does the whole CGI old actors to make them look young? It's incredible. I remember seeing Tron and how they did Flynn, and they made a young Flynn, and it was just a little bit off. Marvel nails it. It's incredible technology how they do it, and I love it. And I love Kurt Russell in this movie. I love his setup. I love how he played a character not quite like you'd expect, but I also just like where he exists in the Marvel universe now, and how it kind of ties together the normal Marvel stuff, the Guardians of the Galaxy real space stuff, and then the Thor more space epic god stuff. Here it ties it together nicely just with his existence. And the fact that this isn't spoilers or anything, but the fact that he's Peter Quill's dad, I thought they did it pretty well. As someone who has daddy issues, I thought they handled that pretty well. There was a conundrum there. There is a conflict. Not like a crazy over-the-top conflict, obviously, at first. It starts out very human in a way, and I really liked it. It then, of course, goes very, very obscure and weird, like the entire movie really does. But everybody really was a standout here. Drax got a lot of comedic parts. Good. I mean, I would have liked to have seen him kill more people, but I think they realize how well he works as the comedic thing, and I was totally into it. Not to mention Baby Groot. Come on. Are you serious, dude? Baby Groot is like, it's a given. Like, look at him. You can't not feel something seeing that little guy on screen, and they use him a lot, and it's effective. He made me smile. I don't know. He was like a cute little kid. He actually made me, for once in my life, feel like I want to have kids. But I don't really want kids. I just want a little baby tree person. Also, the movie, it goes without saying, it's hilarious. These characters have chemistry. Some of it was a little much, like there's a lot of jokiness in this one, but it worked for me. It might not work for everyone because humor is a very subjective thing, but it did work for me. Michael Rooker as Yondu, I think, totally stole the show. You've probably heard this before from other people, but I really think he became full Yondu. He also still was badass. He had his badass moments, but he had his endearing moments, and the way it worked out with Peter Quill, I really liked. As, again, somebody who has, you know, daddy issues and stepdad things, like, it worked for me. And Rocket Raccoon, as much as they didn't flesh out his backstory at all, and he didn't get as much expansion as other characters did, they did give him some scenes where he could just fuck shit up, and it was perfect. He had a really, really awesome scene. I loved it. There was a lot of weird visual stuff in this one that just went really out there. There were some elements that embraced deeper sci-fi stuff that you wouldn't see in a mainstream movie. It also embraced a lot of weird sci-fi android stuff. Introduced to so many other different robots, creatures, characters, races, planets. It expanded the whole thing immensely, but most importantly, it made me wanting more. I'm hungry for more. I want Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 1, because Sylvester Stallone was criminally underused in this movie. But number 2, because this movie feels like it finally came into its own. Instead of trying to be a new sci-fi Star Wars thing, it became this sci-fi weird comic book thing. It works so much, and I don't totally know where they could take it. There's a few places that they hint they could take it. I just really am looking forward to the next one, which is probably going to be a ways off. It is pretty much a given, a confirmation, but we're going to have to wait a while. And you know what? I'm fine. I can't wait to see the Guardians team up with the Avengers. I'm all about it. But let's talk about spoilers real quick. There's not a ton I want to go into with spoilers, just a few things. So go away and come back, I guess, if you've seen it. First things first, I really like that we actually got a visual image of Ego, the living planet. I didn't expect that at all, and it looked really cool. And again, like I said, Kurt Russell, the whole thing with him was so cool. The showdown in the end, when him and Peter Quill were kind of flying around, it became a little bit like Man of Steel, flying CGI stuff. But other than that, like when he was turning into like a skeleton, all that shit was so cool, so sci-fi, high sci-fi. The fact that he was a part of this planet and he was a god. And like I said earlier, did such a good way of tying in the fact that he is a god compared with gods of Asgard and the sci-fi stuff from Guardians. Like it all worked for me. And I guess with that, I think I almost wish Star-Lord got a little bit more. I almost think like as much as he was the main arc and he was the one who had the most character growth in the movie next to Gamora, I wish there was a little bit more with him. However, it did work. You still understand where he's coming from with his mother. He's very much a human. He's more human than anything else. His time in the galaxy hasn't really changed him. And the bit with the Microsoft Zune at the end made me laugh so hard because I had a Microsoft Zune. I bought that first Microsoft Zune because I wanted to be the kid that didn't have an iPod. They had the cool new thing. And the Microsoft Zune was a piece of garbage. That thing bricked in like 6 months. So I laughed my ass off when they introduced that. I'm also very sad that they killed Michael Rooker as Yondu because like I was saying earlier, I think he finally became full Yondu. He's awesome. Audiences love him. They're convinced they want to see him with the gang. And now he's gone. And that's, that sucks. It's cool, I guess, that they reference one of the original Guardians of the Galaxy lineups in the after credits thing. But to me, that was the first time where like my comic book knowledge was a little bit exhausted. I was like, oof. Holy shit, I really don't know much about that shit at all. But we also did get a peek at Adam Warlock, which could be the setup for the eventual next Guardians movie, and that could be pretty cool. But I think for me, obviously, and a lot of people are talking about, is the whole Stan Lee cameo thing. I think it's really great that they showed him with the Watchers. First of all, we got on-screen Marvel Cinematic Universe Watchers, which is something I never ever expected. And while some people might find it a little bit heavy-handed, I do like that they embrace the internet theory, the fact that Stan Lee is the Watcher. I thought it was cool because now he's just kind of like one of the Watcher's dudes. He's hanging out with them in space. So they basically confirmed that he is one character in all these different situations in the Marvel movie when he says like, I was a FedEx guy this one time. I mean, shit. With my after credit stinger things, I would like a little bit more tie into the next movie, whatever it may be. With that being Thor or the setup for the Thanos movie, but it was good. It was cool. It's amazing how many after credit scenes we can fucking get now. It's crazy. It's like, how can they keep topping themselves? But I think with the Stan Lee thing, they went for it. So in summation, I was worried going into Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I was like, oh man, is Marvel finally like starting to churn out the same thing? But after I saw this movie and just how ridiculous it was, even when they're jumping to light speed and their faces discombobulating, I was like, wow, this movie is so fucking weird. And unlike any of the other ones we've seen, that I'm all about it. So with that, I'm still looking forward to the future of Marvel movies. I'm very happy to say that. I loved Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That's it. That's all I gotta say. I mean, I could say, go out and see it. Go check it out. It's worth your time. But chances are you've probably seen it already. But I do want to hear from you guys down in the comments what you do think of the movie. So let's talk about it down there. I'll be down there with you guys. But if you got any more things you want to say to me about it, yell at me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jake Baldino. You know how this works by now. Thank you guys for coming around at my humble channel, listening to me ramble. Clicking the like button does really help me personally out quite a bit. As always, I'm Jake Baldino. Thanks for watching, and you can subscribe because video games.